And I'd like to welcome you all to our Thursday 1:30 p.m. session with Giovanna once again, where today she will be talking about navigating the holidays, grief, and self-care. So, how to take care of yourself during this time. Thank you so much. I'm going to read our disclaimer. The WildTech DC Senior Digital Inclusion Program, its owners and presenters offer technical assistance, virtual health, well-being, information designed for educational purposes only. You should not rely on the info on any apps or topics made by WildTech, including but not limited to mobile device applications and any social media pages maintained by WildTech, its owners or presenters as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or legal advice. Thank you so much for letting me read the disclaimer. If you cannot see us, hear us, let us know in the chat. Let's keep our TVs and cell phones in mind. But as always, make sure you take notes and or screenshots so you can review the information for later on. But yes, this will be on YouTube. So hello, YouTube. And I hope you all learned something new today. Giovanna, if you could introduce yourself and your topic for today. Thank you so much for coming on. And we will all learn something new today. Take it away.
Righty, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
So while you do so, for the folks that may have not joined, we love your introduction and what you'll be covering for us today. We can see your screen. Thank you so much.
Okay. Presenting. One second.
All right, Giovanna, again, if you can introduce yourself and your topic for today, thank you so much.
Alrighty, so I'm Giovanna Hunt. I'm the Dementia Program Coordinator at the Department of Aging and Community Living. And today we're going to be talking about navigating the holidays, understanding grief, and self-care. So I have a nice little agenda here. So we're going to go through an icebreaker where we're going to play myth or fact. Then we're going to actually talk about grief. So what is it? What causes it? What are the symptoms? The different types, as well as the various stages of grief. We're going to navigate caregiving in grief. So what self-care, how to navigate grief, grief in the holidays, and how to cope. And then any additional questions or comments that you may have. Once again, if you have questions or comments that you want to make throughout the presentation, I encourage you to do so. So that way it can be as interactive as possible. Alrighty, so for our icebreaker, like I said, we're going to play myth or fact. So what you're going to do is I'm going to say a statement and you're going to tell me whether or not you think it's a myth or you think it's a fact. The first statement is there is a right or correct way to grieve.
You can unmute yourself and say what you think.
Myth.
Myth.
That's a
Myth.
myth.
That's a myth.
Okay, that is correct. It is a myth. The actual fact is there is no right or correct way to grieve, right? So grief is unique to everybody. It's similar to a fingerprint. It is unique to you and you alone. No one else can tell you what is correct, what is right, what's wrong. None of that when it comes to your grieving process. What's helpful and beneficial to you today might not really be helpful or beneficial to you tomorrow or next week. And there's nothing wrong with that. The next statement is grief resolves in a specific time frame. Do you think that's a myth or a fact?
Please
That's
unmute
a
yourself.
myth.
It's a myth. Myth.
Myth.
Correct. That is a myth. The fact is, grief itself is not linear. So there's no specific timeline that you have to follow when it comes to grief. With grief, people can move in and out of their grief at different times, as well as you move in and out of various emotions. And like I said, there's no specific timeline for what that looks like. Grief is going to come in waves, and that is okay. The next statement is crying is the only way to express your grief. Is that a myth or a fact?
That's a myth.
Myth. Myth.
Myth.
It is. Crying is only one way that people respond when we're looking at grief. However, that's not the only
Myth.
response. Grief can look totally different to a lot of people. Grief can look like not eating. Grief can look like withdrawing or isolating. Grief can look like wanting to be around others at various times. Grief is going to always look different for each person. The next statement, grief only occurs after the loss of a loved one. Is that a myth or a fact?
Myth.
A myth.
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 A myth.
Grief.
Yes, that is also a myth. Any type of significant loss can cause grief. So, this can be the death of a loved one, this can be the loss of a job, a relationship ending, the death of a pet, as well as any major health concerns or even actual physical changes that individuals experience as you age that can cause grief. And then the last phrase, moving on, means betrayal or forgetting about the person. Is
That's a
that a
myth.
myth?
That's
Myth.
a
Myth.
myth too.
Oh, y'all were quick on that one.
Yeah.
That is true. It is a myth. Just because you become happy or you start to move on, that does not necessarily mean you are betraying and or forgetting about your loved one. It also doesn't mean you do not love them. What it's saying is you have now accepted this loss, but you're still able to preserve your loved one's memory. So now let's actually talk about what is grief.
If you all have any questions, just don't forget to raise your hands in Zoom, and probably most likely after each slide. And if you want to share something and or have a question, okay? Thank you so much, Giovanna, for that wonderful icebreaker.
Alrighty. So, grief is going to be a natural response that we all have, whether it's physical or emotional, to a significant loss. So, like I mentioned before, a lot of times people have the misconception that grief is only associated with the loss of a loved one. However, grief is going to occur anytime there's a major life event that changes, challenges, or disrupts you and your overall being, right? We're also looking at grief is going to always be unique to the individual. And like I said before, I like to compare it to a fingerprint. It's yours. No one else has the same fingerprint, just like no one else goes through the same grief journey. There may be some similarities, but it's not always the same. Everyone's journey is going to always be different. And it's also very important that you remember grief is never going to be linear. You might be fine today, and tomorrow you might be sad.
That's right.
You know, the following day, you might not have an appetite. And then the day after that, you may want to be around everybody and you might be in a really good mood. And that's okay because that's what grief looks like. And that's your journey to navigate. So there are various causes when we're looking at grief. Some causes include, like I mentioned before, death of a partner, death of a family member, a friend, or even a pet. It can be the end of a friendship, loss of a job or career changes. It can be financial challenges. We're looking at significant physical and mental health challenges, environmental changes like natural disasters and or moving. A lot of times older adults want to age in place. You want to age where you feel the most comfortable, which is your home. And sometimes you may get uprooted and have to go to long-term care facilities or assisted living. That can also potentially cause grief. We're looking at fertility issues or miscarriages, loss of self, as well as overall loss of goals or future plans. That can also cause grief. For those of you that are caregivers, you also experience grief because you're looking at loss of yourself, independence, personal time, as well as financial challenges. You can be experiencing loss of a job or your career might change. For instance, my mom, she was of retirement age and she wasn't quite ready to retire. However, in 2023, when my nana had quite a few falls and a few hospitalizations, my mom had to retire to come take home, come home and take care of my grandparents. So anything can change at any given time, and it may cause some significant grief. You're also looking at relationship changes between the caregiver and the overall care recipient because those dynamics are shifting. That can also cause grief for a person. So, for symptoms of grief, grief is going to impact your entire being. It doesn't just impact one aspect of your life, it impacts a lot. So, we're looking at emotional, physical, and behavioral components that are coming into play when we're talking about grief. So, if we're looking at emotions, you may notice that you go through a range of emotions. It looks like an emotional roller coaster, and they come in waves. So, you could be sad, you could be angry, you could be anxious, you could be fearful, you might be irritable. All of those things can come at various times. When you're looking at physical, grief is going to take a toll on your body overall. So we're looking at your whole nervous system, your digestive system, as well as your overall immune system. So you could have headaches, you might be fatigued, your stomach might hurt, and you might not have an appetite. You might be nauseous, you could be restless. You may notice that you're having some tightness or heaviness in your chest, as well as you may notice weight gain and or weight loss. And some of this can also even cause you to feel sick often and make you more susceptible to catching colds and things of that nature because you look at you're also stressed and not sleeping. Then we're looking at behavioral issues that may come into play because of grief. So, how you normally function in your everyday life, that might be different because you're grieving. So, you may notice that you're having difficulty concentrating, may have some challenges completing your normal daily tasks. You may notice you're starting to withdraw. You might be a little confused. You may even notice that you're starting to neglect your overall self care. And sometimes when we're looking at grief, you may question your faith. You may lose interest in your hobbies, as well as substance use and overall a disrupted sense of yourself. So there are various types of grief. The main type that I'll go through a few of these. The type for caregivers, you tend to experience anticipatory grief. So with caregiving, you're going through the grief over and over because you're expecting a loss to happen before it actually occurs. So you're actually watching the person change before your eyes. That's a significant loss that caregivers tend to experience. Then you have common and normal grief, which is going to be your typical reaction to a loss that eventually over time it starts to lessen. You have cumulative grief, where you have multiple losses that have occurred over time. For instance, in 2024, I lost my Nana in July, I lost my favorite cousin in September, and then in November, I lost an uncle. That's an example of cumulative grief. And here are some other types of grief. You have delayed grief is going to be a response to a grief that may be postponed or it doesn't actually happen right away. It may happen much later after the loss occurs. So it could happen days, weeks, months, or even years after a loss. Sometimes it happens later depending on what's going on. So if you are the main person caring for a person and you have to schedule the funeral, you got to get the estate planning done, all of those things, your grief may be postponed until you have handled all of those tasks. Sometimes with caregivers, especially adult children, if you're caring for more than one family member, you may experience delayed grief because you immediately have to go back to focusing on the other person that you're caring for. You also have collective and or disenfranchised grief. So disenfranchised grief is going to be any type of loss that's not necessarily considered worthy or recognized by society. So an example can be suicide or the death of a pet. So in 1969, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the idea of the stages of grief, stages of loss, or stages of death, depending on who you're talking to. But all of these stages, I want it to be clear that they do not go in order that you see them on the screen. And individuals don't necessarily experience all stages of grief. And you can be in one stage longer than others if you experience them. They're not in a fixed order, and you can move in and out at any given time. So the first stage would be denial. So this is going to happen when you are not necessarily accepting, or you're having difficulty accepting the loss as a real thing. Then you have anger. So you may be experiencing various feelings such as frustration, rage, all of those things, and you may direct your anger at multiple sources. So you can look at your directing your anger at yourself, your loved one that may have passed, others around you, the whole situation in its entirety, as well as you might direct your anger at God. You're looking at bargaining. This is when you're going to create an agreement or some type of negotiation, oftentimes with a higher power, so that you do not have to necessarily deal with the grief or try to change the circumstances. So you may say, if I do this, this won't happen. Or let's try to navigate this so this doesn't occur. That's what we're looking at when we're bargaining. You also go through depression. So now we're experiencing the full weight and complexity of every emotion that you're going through that comes with a loss. And then there's acceptance, when you actually embrace the reality of the loss. However, you still acknowledge there are some pieces of pain that go with it, and you're still able to acknowledge the memory of the person you may have lost or the situation. Like I said before, none of these are linear. They're not in fixed order. You don't necessarily have to go through all of these stages, and that is okay. For instance, with me, when my Nana passed last year, I immediately started at acceptance because I looked at it. My Nana made it to 90. It was important for her to make it to 90. She made it to 90. I had her for 34 years, and that would be selfish of me to want to keep her longer when she wasn't really feeling well and she wasn't at her best. But again, I accepted that I had her for 34 years and that she made it to 90. Anger crept in with me later afterwards as I was grieving, but it happens. That was my grief journey.
Uh, Thank you for sharing your stories, Giovanna. I know you did last time as well, so I hope it's
Yeah.
helping us hear, some
Anger,
maybe similar.
yeah, grieving taught me a lot. Like my Nana, every time I would get sick, would make me soup, homemade soup. Anger crept in when I had to make my own soup when I got sick. Because I had to try to figure out how to remember, how did my Nana make this when I was sick? Wait a minute. But it happens. It takes a toll. I see Miss Doris and then
Yeah.
Miss Ann.
Do you mind going to the previous slide? That was a really good slide. Yes. Well, I'll be able to assist with the hands. I see them, Giovanna. I got Anne first, and then Ms. Doris, and then Miss Brenda. Thank you.
Giovanni, um, is it good to lash out when people criticize you for um, grieving for a pet? Um, I had a cat that had a brain tumor, and I took good care of her. And everybody said I wasted money, but I raised her from a baby. I fed her with a bottle when she came here, and it made me feel like I was being silly.
Because you got to think about it. You had your pet from a kitten and you raised her all the way up to a full grown cat. And a lot of times people consider their pets a part of the family. So that was a family member for you.
That's the way
That
I, but
that was, you loved your cat. And grieving your cat and doing all that you could do to take care of your cat, it wasn't silly. But it's also disenfranchised grief where some people a lot of times don't necessarily understand it,
Mm.
but it doesn't make the loss any less real.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You are welcome, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry about your cat.
Yeah, well, I had her for almost 20 years.
Oh
Well,
wow. Yeah, you had a nice relationship with your cat.
And I got her, she was about, I guess maybe 3 weeks old or not a month. We found her under my porch.
Oh,
well,
So I fed with a bottle. So thank you for
yeah.
talking with me. That made me feel a lot better.
You are very welcome. And
yeah.
again, it's your grief, so nobody can tell you how you're supposed to feel or that any of your feelings are wrong because they're yours.
Mhm. Thank you for that good reminder. We all feel it different. Thank you so much. We got Miss Doris and then Miss Brenda and then Miss Wanda. And then we gotta, we're having lots of fun, but we'll get to everyone today.
My father was 97 years old and he had Alzheimer's. And they told me, well, one day he'd never gonna know you. My father never forgot me at all. He remembered me, he remembered my daughter, and he had good memory up until the day that he passed and stuff. And he would tell them people at the nursing home, I call my daughter, she gonna come over here and whip your asses.
Yeah.
He knew my phone number and all that. And he was 97 years old.
It could be the long term memory, and especially if you were around him often and a part of his routine.
Hmm
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He never forgot me. They said, you're going to come over here one day. He's not going to remember you. He never forgot me or my daughter because we
I'm,
both took care of him.
I'm glad that you have those memories of your dad. And everybody's dementia journey looks different.
He never forgot neither one of us. He always remembered us.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you for letting me share that.
You are welcome. Thank you for sharing with us.
Um,
Miss Brenda.
yes, any questions or
Yeah.
anything? Thank
Hi, Giovanna.
Hi, Miss Brenda.
Giovanna, my son, my youngest son, just lost his girlfriend on the 25th of November. And, they've been together, they traveled, they did a lot of stuff. They were both in love. And he was taking care of her, at her place. He would go to the store, get her water, get her stuff she need. So the day that she, got to that point where she passed, he was there. And it just took a toll on him. In fact, he called me on that day and he was just hollering and screaming on the phone. He was just so upset. And, it made me upset. And we loved her. She was just a sweet lady. But my question is, how do I help him deal with it? I mean, I'm grieving too because I love the lady.
Right.
And he's really, he can't eat and his stomach is hurting and he's laying around. I'm and what I do now is I just call him and check on him every day, just talk to him and see how I'm feeling. But is there anything else that I can do to kind of help him? I know I told him it's going to take some time. You know, you're not going to ever get over it, but you'll be able to kind of deal with it later. But is it anything that I can do to kind of, help him along?
So with grief, everybody's different, right? But you just being there to still call on him, to check on him, and just being there as that support is helpful.
Okay.
You can also ask him during this time what is the best way he needs to be supported. He might not know, and that's okay.
Right. Right.
Because sometimes just having the presence of another person is helpful. You may not necessarily always have to do something or say anything.
Yeah.
It could just be the presence of another person.
Okay.
So what you're doing now is helpful.
Okay.
Plus, you're his
Okay.
mom. So moms
Yeah.
always know what to do
Yeah.
when they got to do it.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But I
Okay.
am also sorry to hear about his girlfriend.
Yeah. I mean, it was a shock, you know.
Yeah.
She had been in the hospital and in fact, they diagnosed her with acute pancreatitis.
Mm.
And, they let her out and then she was in a lot of pain. They readmitted her and then they let her out again on a Saturday and she died on that Tuesday, whatever day the 25th was. And, he was just devastated and I was too. So, yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine. And he's
yeah,
probably going through the waves of every emotion possible in all of the stages, and that's okay.
yeah. But
But just
I'm
being there.
worried about him because he's not eating and he's just he's like down in the dumps all the time and you know and I when it first happened and he was really upset and I told him I said, well, Aaron, I said, I know you're going through this. I said, but I don't want to lose you either. I
Right.
don't want to lose you, so I'm trying to just be there for him. So
And that's the best thing you can do. It's probably going to be baby steps for him.
yeah,
But like I said, just being there, being a presence is helpful. Because a lot of times when you think about grief, if you've never been put in that situation before, you really don't know what it is you need
right, yeah,
in that moment, right? Because you've never been here before. So you're
right,
navigating and you're
right.
trying to figure it out all on your own, as well as go through every emotion possible that comes with grieving.
Okay.
So you're doing the right thing, Miss Brenda.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Miss Wanda and then Miss Wilda.
Yeah, Giovanna, I know that I'm not I forgot your agenda for today, but I know some of the things we'll be talking more in depth, which is great. I love it. So again, thank you so much all for your thoughts and comments. We'll do a round of thanks at the end. Miss Wanda and then Miss Wilda, please, and then we'll go on to our next slide.
Good,
Any questions or thoughts?
good afternoon.
Hi, Miss
Um,
Wanda.
how are you? I
It's Thursday.
what did you say?
I said it's Thursday.
It's Thursday. Okay. Um, my question is, I don't want to say complex, but I recently, since the beginning of November, have lost two cousins, two aunts, and my daughter-in-law's sister. And throughout this loss, I have stayed very positive and upbeat because I believe we are born and then we die. But um, last week, I got a text that one of my best friends passed away. And it just seems like, I guess, the floods just opened up for me, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yesterday, I had the privilege of going to the holiday party as well. And I took my mom. And before I left, I was with my father, who has Lewy body dementia. And, he had his aide and other people there. And it seems like between grieving these deaths and especially my best friend on top of that, I feel like I'm grieving my dad as well because even though he's still here, um, I grieve the things that go on with his illness.
Right.
You know, we've talked about it and we've discussed it. And, you know, I have to have patience with everything, but it just seems like I feel like I'm grieving him, even though he's here, because he wants to do things that he should not be doing.
Right.
He recently fell and broke his hip. So he just got home from being in the hospital for 2 weeks. And so it is it's just overwhelming sometimes. It's like I don't feel like I get a break.
Right.
And with my friend, it's more or less like she had been through a lot and um, 3 different types of cancers: brain cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, and just all kinds of things that, she would be in remission and she would go through and she would go to the Christmas party with me every year. So yesterday was, bittersweet. I was trying to look at it as, oh, we're at a different venue, but
Right.
it kept popping up because her services was yesterday as well, but it was in Boston and it was online. And so how do you feel the void or the emptiness when you're grieving someone this year, you're grieving others that have gone, and you really want to be strong in that situation, but you can't. And everybody's so used to you being the strong person or being the one that does everything for everybody. And I just need a break,
Right.
Thank you for sharing, Miss Wanda.
Miss Wanda, are you done asking your question? It kind of cut off.
No, the fur baby started running her mouth. I was trying to mute myself.
Okay. The fur baby wanted to join the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So, is it a such thing as grieving when someone is still alive? And how do I label what I'm going through with 6 deaths under a month?
Right. So the 6 deaths under the month, that will fall under cumulative loss, because those are multiple losses that have happened over time. In terms of the other losses that you're experiencing, as far as grieving your dad, that's anticipatory loss, but also a lot of times for caregivers, when we're caring for loved ones with dementia, we also go through ambiguous loss. So when you're looking at ambiguous loss, we're looking at the person is physically there. However, psychologically, mentally, all of those things, they're not present. And so it prolongs your grief. It can make it sometimes a little more confusing and more complex. But those are typically the types of grief that caregivers go through. And it's okay to want a break. And it is okay to give yourself that break. It is also okay not to always be the strong one. It is okay to have your moments where you are acknowledging and feeling your feelings, whatever those look like. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. Feel them. Acknowledge them. Express them however that looks like to you. Allow yourself the chance to go through what you're feeling without always having to put on a brave face. Because sometimes we don't have it. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means at that moment, I don't have it. And that's okay. I am sorry for all of the losses that you have experienced over these past few months. But I do want you to be very gentle with yourself right now and give yourself a lot of grace. Miss Wanda.
Do that help? Again, I have to unmute them, Giovanna.
Oh,
Wanda,
Um, Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
you're welcome. Yeah, take the time you need for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk through that as we go through the self-care part.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you again.
You are very welcome. Miss Wilda?
yeah, Giovanna, real quick, just if you have any resources, again, especially from DACL, I know the hotline number, the Caregivers Institute, I thought of with that. Just any information, please put in the chat. That would be really helpful. Miss Wilda, do you want to share? I do see Miss Dorsey have a hand up, but we gotta keep the
Praise the
time.
Lord, everyone. This is Walter. I do want to first send my condolences to each and every one for your losses. But I am so thankful that the Lord led me to this class today. I normally don't get a chance to get on. Uh, so I truly, truly am inspired. What prompted me to share was when I heard you say you realize actually how long you were with, your loved one. You were talking about your grandmother. Well, in March of 23, my daughter died suddenly, March 11th. And I only had one daughter. And 2 weeks later, my husband died suddenly. So within 2 weeks, I had lost both of my family members, immediate family members. My life turned upside down and went from 3 paychecks to one. I I I realized what happened. I was numb for 9 complete months. For 9 months, I sat there. I didn't do anything about my situation. Didn't start knowing I had to move because I couldn't afford the place anymore. Wasn't packing. I was just going through the motions, not doing a thing about my situation. Not to all of a sudden somebody banged on my door and said, "Oh, what's up with you?" You know what I'm saying? Then I realized, oh man, I can't go on like this. And so being that was just 2 years ago, the holidays can be very, very triggering for my family. The children still have some unforgiveness issues that they weren't, how you have problems with your mother.
Right.
It was 5 boys and uh my grandsons that I raised. And so this time of year can be really, really challenging. But what truly brought me around is, as I said, when I heard you say, you realize how long you had been with your loved one. I had always beat myself up because I had my daughter at 16, and back in 71 to get pregnant at 16 and unmarried was not a good thing.
Right.
Praise the Lord, I always kind of, privately beat myself up about it. But I realized when my daughter died at 52, if I had not had her, I was with my daughter almost 40 years. Simply because I'd had her young in life. And that was the thing I beat myself up about. And it really was unnerving, you know what I'm saying, when I realized just how long I was had her with me. So God bless each and every one of you. And I pray that this holiday will be better. And it seems like everyone does get better. It was had a few flubs, but as the children come together, we're planning to come together again day after Christmas this time. And so I'm just praying that all is well. We have not, they have not been able to release some things. My middle grandson, he preached the sermon, he preached his mama's funeral, which we begged him not to do. And he is just beginning to grieve now. It's been 2 years later. He's now beginning to grieve. So as you said, grief can look very different for everyone. It's just a day-to-day situation. I keep my daughter's picture right there on my mirror. So I see it. I talk to her picture all the time. I pray for her picture all the time. For me, those are things that help me. My children come in my bedroom and say, "Oh, Mama, why you got that picture sitting up there like that? That doesn't bother you." But it doesn't. It's healing for me. So I said it can look very different for everyone. And I just pray that all will be well for each and every one who has a loss to have a loss. And no, this is not the end. Absent from this life is to be present with God. Thank you for letting me
Thank you,
share.
Miss Rhoda. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry to hear about your husband and your daughter. But like you said, you had her for almost 40 something years, a long time. So now we're going to talk about what is self-care when we're looking at grief. Because a lot of times when you're looking at caregiving and you're looking at grief, you can't acknowledge one without the other, right? But a lot of times caregivers are not good at caring for themselves. They're great at caring for others, but themselves not so much. So now let's talk that through. What does that look like? So self-care is going to be the practice of taking care of your overall health as well as your well-being. So this, we're looking at everything, the entire picture of you as a person. We're looking at your emotional, your mental, and your physical health. So when you're doing self-care, we are now preventing and lowering our risk of illnesses. We're managing our stress, as well as we're increasing our overall energy. Again, self-care is similar to grief in that it is unique to you and you alone. It is going to look different for everyone. What you need today might not be what you need tomorrow, but it is yours. So self-care can be practiced at any time throughout the day. It doesn't have to be, oh, I just set time on this particular day, this block of time. No, you can do self-care at any given time when you need it. So if you're looking at emotional or mental self-care, this can look like deep breathing, meditation, just overall relaxing activities, journaling, right? If music, a lot of times music is very calming and soothing to people. That can be your self care if you just decided for like 30 minutes to just listen to your favorite song that's calming to you. Reading a book and drinking some tea, that is calming, that is soothing, that helps with your emotional and mental self care. If we're looking at physical, it could be going outside to just take a walk, connecting with nature, right? Taking a shower, just getting in the shower, or just getting up to brush your teeth looks like self care. Making sure you go to your medical appointments and not canceling them or rescheduling them, taking your medication as prescribed. All of that looks like physical self care. Actually, adhering to your bedtime. If you decide that I'm going to go to bed every night at 8 o'clock and you go to bed at 8 o'clock, that's self care because you are making sure you are getting adequate and appropriate sleep. Social self care looks like connecting with others. So, how you all come on the Zoom, however often you come on this Zoom, that's social self care because you're interacting and you're connecting with others. If you go to wellness centers, again, you're connecting and interacting with others. If you go to classes where you learn a new skill like sewing classes, cooking classes, exercise classes, all of that is participating in social self care as well as physical self care, depending on the class. Spiritual self care looks like prayer, meditation, or being in nature, whatever that means to you. That is what you are doing to take care of that aspect of your life. When you're navigating grief, that's what we're going to talk about. When you're navigating grief, I wouldn't be a good dementia program coordinator if I didn't throw a piece of dementia training in here. So, for those of you that care for individuals with dementia, understand that grief for the caregiver as well as grief for the individual with dementia is going to occur at different stages. Like I mentioned before, caregivers also experience various forms of grief. We're looking at ambiguous grief, anticipatory grief, and cumulative grief. All of that does occur, but you're also looking at the person with dementia. They experience grief because now they're starting to also experience loss of independence, loss of freedom, loss of self, as well as goal and future plans and overall abilities. All of these things may hit at different times. So it's important that you really understand that when we're trying to navigate our grief. Some helpful tips as we're still navigating the grief. It's important that you always acknowledge and feel your feelings. I say this all the time. I tell this for every single class that I do. You need to always acknowledge and feel your feelings because at the end of the day, they are yours and yours alone. How you validate and acknowledge others' feelings, you need to do the same for yourself. So validate your own emotions. It's okay if today you're angry. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's not a negative emotion. It's not a good emotion. It's just the emotion that you are feeling in that moment. Acknowledge it, feel it, lean into it. It'll pass eventually. If you're feeling happy today, that's okay too. Acknowledge it, feel it, lean into it. You want to be mindful that you can experience any of these emotions at any given time. You also want to be mindful that you can experience feelings of loss more than once. Um, like I mentioned before, we're looking at anticipatory grief and ambiguous grief. So, those of you that are caring for individuals with dementia, you're really looking at ambiguous and anticipatory grief. Those of you that are caring for a person with a terminal illness, you're looking at anticipatory grief. But just be mindful that that can happen, and you want to be gentle with yourself as you're going through those various forms of grief. You also want to seek support as you're going through your grief journey. So, this can look like therapy, this can look like a support group, this can be talking to your doctor because now you're starting to notice your own physical health is changing and you need additional guidance and assistance. Do that. If you need to connect to the social workers or the case managers at DACL because you need resources, do that. Connecting with DC Caregivers Institute because they offer caregiving services and resources for caregivers. Do that. The Went Center for Grief and Loss. Connect with them if that's something that you need. You want to get the support that you need. Utilize your family and friends if they are also helpful because they can also be means of support. It might just be something as simple as you just called them on the phone because you just wanted to talk. Or they just decided to come over and just sit with you. They didn't even have to talk to you. They just came over to sit with you, just to sit. That's still some form of support. You also want to look at seeking support because this can be helpful with combating those feelings of isolation and overall loneliness because grief can be lonely. So when you're connecting with others and you're seeking support, that can kind of help alleviate some of those feelings. You want to make sure you're having outlets for yourself. So this can look like any type of activity or hobby that brings you joy. So we're journaling, we're meditating, we're also practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is going to be any type of practice where you're focusing on that present moment. So we're looking at how is my body feeling in this moment? What does my breathing look like? What am I thinking? We're very aware of our thoughts. What sensations am I feeling? What is going on in my overall surroundings? Like, is it too loud? Is it very calm and quiet? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling jittery? Am I feeling calm? Those are the things you're looking at when you're practicing mindfulness because you're basically trying to ground yourself. You also want to make sure that you understand that not everyone is going to understand your grief. Not everyone's going to get it. Not everyone is going to be receptive. And to be honest, not everyone is going to be kind as you are grieving. But that speaks more about them than that does you. Because again, they may just not understand, or they may also not have been put in the predicament where they've had to experience it. You want to make sure you're communicating, set and have boundaries. Okay, if it's something that you don't want to do today, say no. No is a full sentence, it's a complete stop, it's not a question. If you don't want to do it, don't force yourself to do it. If you need time, take your time. You want to make sure you're communicating your needs and asking for help when needed. A lot of times you may not know what you need help with, but when you realize you need help, ask. Even if it's something as small as, can somebody help you go to the doctor or go to the grocery store for you? If that's something you need, ask for it. You also want to make sure you're adjusting and managing your expectations, not just of others or situations. Adjust and manage your expectations of yourself. Because a lot of times we put higher standards on ourselves and give ourselves harsher expectations than we would other people. And then we kind of get a little upset when we don't meet those expectations. But why are we putting all that pressure on ourselves and for what reason? We want to adjust and manage those. Grief in the holidays. Miss Wilda said it perfectly. The holiday season can be joyous for some, and it might be not as joyous for others. It can be, in fact, stressful and sad for some people around this time. And it neither is wrong or right. It's just what you're feeling during this particular time of the year. Because a lot of times when we're looking at it, the holidays are going to tend to magnify those significant losses that you are experiencing, especially if you're a caregiver, um, or for those who have dementia. Holidays can be a little rough around this time. You also want to understand that individuals with dementia are going to navigate their sense of loss during the holidays because we're looking again at the changes in their overall abilities, their overall independence, as well as overall traditions. It may be unfamiliar surroundings and things of that nature. So things may look a little different during the holidays. The holidays can also trigger feelings of being very much overwhelmed and overstimulated, as well as overextended for caregivers. So you want to make sure you are doing what you need to do to protect yourself and to give yourself time to just breathe. So, in order to do that, I got some tips on how we can cope during the holidays. Because, like I said before, we're experiencing various emotions during this time, and you want to make sure you're getting through it the best way you know how. So, again, like I said, we're acknowledging our feelings and we're feeling them. We're leaning into those feelings, and we're also understanding that it is okay to feel the way we are feeling. No matter what that feeling is, it is okay. Give yourself the opportunity to feel it, acknowledge it, lean into it without making yourself feel guilty or feeling bad for the feelings you are going through. You also can honor your loved one during this time. So, this can look like lighting a candle, saying a prayer, or even if you want to share funny stories about your loved one or your favorite story, if it looks like cooking their favorite meal or baking their favorite treat, whatever it is, do that. You also want to make sure we have plan A and B and sometimes plan C, because sometimes things don't always work out the way we want them to, and that's okay. Not everything's going to go as planned. However, you can still enjoy certain things, or you just have to navigate and do things differently. So you now are creating new memories and new traditions. You may have to modify some of your plans, or you can do something like canceling the entire holiday if you have to. That is okay. If you decide that this holiday season is just not for you right now, as you navigate what you're going through, it is okay to cancel it. It's okay not to go if that's what you are feeling you need to do. You want to make sure you're prioritizing your self care. So we're focusing on the present, we're taking our breaks, we're setting those boundaries. So again, we're saying no, we're delegating tasks, and you are going to drop whatever is causing you stress. If it's stressful, do you need it? Don't keep it, let it go. You want to make sure we're communicating, we're seeking and utilizing all of our support systems. Maintain your overall routine so that you can stay at an equilibrium. And you also want to make sure you're finding simple moments of joy. So these small moments of happiness can look like drinking your favorite beverage out of your favorite cup, eating your favorite meal, wearing your favorite pajamas, wearing your favorite scent, watching your favorite movie, whatever that looks like to you, whatever brings you joy, do that during this time. And that is it. That is all I have. Any additional questions and comments, we can talk those through now. Here is the contact information for DACL for our information and referral line in the event you have any additional questions about services that DACL offers, as well as if you need to make any referrals for yourself and or loved ones. You can reach us at 202-724-5626. In the event you suspect abuse, neglect, or exploitation, you can always contact our Adult Protective Services hotline at 202-541-3950. And then here is my contact information, as well as my supervisors and our clinical service officer, Miss Joan Williams. That is all I have. I'm gonna
Thank you so much, Giovanna. Make sure you stay on.
My hand is still up. Ain't nobody called me yet.
Yes, Miss Doris. Thank you so much. We see the hands. Okay.
Oh, and
Thank you.
there's some questions, there's some stuff in the chat. Oh, wait a minute.
Giovanna, do you mind putting the slides back up, please, so we can go through them as needed? Yes, yeah, that wonderful information. We want to make sure folks have the chance to screenshot or record the info. I know this will be in our YouTube, but for folks that are on today, thank you. Let's give him a minute or so for this one. And then if you could go back to the Jackal Hotline one in a minute, that would be great. And then especially those two slides, the I think your last slide was really great. And then I really enjoy that self-care slide as well. So go into those tips, I think will be very helpful. But thank you again for being so
Okay, Miss
vulnerable and sharing
Doris, I see your hand.
information. Um,
Miss Doris.
you get a chance to go to the self-care slide, that would be great. Yes, Ms. Doris, if anyone else has any questions or comments, make sure you raise your hand in Zoom. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I had my name raised in Zoom. Let me tell you something. My father was 97 years old. My mother was 70 something years old. I'm the youngest girl out of 8 kids that I took care of both of my parents to the day they died and everything. And my father had Alzheimer's. He never forgot me or my daughter. He would always call them people. And with my mother, when she passed, when I was over there with her, she said, I can't eat no more food. And she died in the hospital after that. And I'm the youngest baby girl, and I took care of both my parents. And I thank God that He gave me the strength, to take care of them. And I cried every day that they died on their deathbed. I cried. Nobody out of 8 children, my children, on my kids and everything, nobody had eight children that they cried for my parents that died. And I took care of both of them till the day they died. That's all I want to say.
Thank you for sharing that, Miss Doris.
Um, okay,
Miss Denise.
thank you for sharing. Yes, any other hands?
I see
Please,
Miss
please.
Denise.
Giovanna, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I see
Yes.
Miss Denise.
Yes. If anyone else has any questions, comments, this is the time. Again, thank you so much, Giovanna. We got Janice next.
Hi, I just wanted to share a little bit about grief. You know, with my husband, my dad, my mom, you know, you grieve different for each one. But I have a relationship with God now, and I don't grieve that hard because He say, "Don't worry about it. I got this." You know, I got them, and when it's your time, you're gonna come up here with them. So don't grieve so hard. You're going to think about them all the time. But just remember, because when my husband passed in the hospital and I was holding his hand, I told God, I say, you do what you think is best. And I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to curse you out, because you know what's best. And he took him away with him. But I didn't grieve a lot because he already told me, don't grieve, don't worry about that. Because a lot of people now, we grieve so hard and blah, blah, blah. But they in a place where they comfortable and they happy and they have no more pain. You know what I'm saying? Because he came to me in a dream, my husband, and he was in heaven. Everything was gold, and he say, I'm happy, you know. And that made me feel better because I say, you know, I know, well, it's hard to explain sometimes, but I know I was for a second. But I used to tell my daughter, she say, Mom, you okay? I say, no. I say, I need to know answers. I need to know why he left me,
Right.
And she said, well, Mom, that's something I can't answer. And I say, well, that's when I start talking more with God. And he said, don't worry and take care of you. So now I don't, when people pass or die, I feel a little sad for them, but I know they going to a better place now. That the same place we going to go. So we can't really, you have to talk to them and let them know that, even your loved ones. When they're, you know, like Brenda say, her son's girlfriend passed. But when you talk with him, let him kind of explain to him and let him know that, you know, he's not, we, I don't know if y'all heard me, it sounded like it cut off. We going to a same place they are. They just up there enjoying looking down at us. So try not to grieve so hard because it's going to happen to all of us. You know, we're not here on earth forever. So we have to look at it that way. But thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you for sharing that, Miss Denise.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Ann, I see your hand.
Thank you for talking with me again. I just wanted to say, uh, I thought that some of the things you said gave me a perspective on what some days I feel. Um, my father died when I was 3, and uh, I realized that the help that my family gave me helped me to help my granddaughter when my mother passed. And in fact, it was just my granddaughter, her great granddaughter. Um, and I'm going to share this with her because she's been having a little hard time lately thinking about her mama. And I noticed that she's been coming and getting little things, and she asked me for a Christmas tablecloth. And her husband came home and saw a tablecloth on the table, and he asked her about it, and she said, Mama always had a tablecloth for every occasion. And she said, I wanted to do it. And he said, well, it means that she is feeling close to my mom again. And um, and I found that keeping up that tradition has made others feel comfortable. So thank you for this presentation, and don't be alarmed if I call you one day. Okay.
That is perfectly fine.
You
Thank you
you
for
you you
sharing
you
that.
brought me a lot of comfort today.
Hey, I'm glad. I do know around this time, you know, it's hard for some. And I also understand that a lot of time when we're looking at grief, grief can be a very complex and often confusing topic for some people because sometimes you don't even realize that you're actually grieving
This is
and
true.
you're going through certain things, and being able to provide some sense of comfort for any of you all, or at least information that's helpful. I did my job, and I'm glad that I was able to come today to help do that with you all.
Well, I'm sure that everybody else appreciated, but I appreciated seeing things that I have done to try to cope. And I've lost a lot of people in the last 2 years, and in the last few months, it's been very traumatic. But um, I'm trying to keep my spirits up.
I understand. Well, thank you for sharing that, Miss Ann. And I'm always here if y'all need me. Matter of fact, let me put my contact information in the chat because I do know it was on the slides. Um, but I will put my contact information in the chat, as
Thank
well
you.
as I'll put the information for the other services at DACL in the chat as well, because I don't think I did that last time.
Again, thank you so much, Anne, for sharing. Um, and I see we have two hands. I'm going to allow anyone else that has not spoken yet, or spoken yet, has not shared, that would like to share before we get to these two hands. Again, if you have not shared yet, if you have a comment for Giovanna, question, you can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself, and we'll try. We're almost at the top of the hour, but I wanted to give that room to others as well. If you have not spoken yet, shared, if you have anything to ask Giovanna, share today, please raise your hand, unmute yourself. Anyone else? I see you, Miss Doris, Miss Denise. I appreciate you all so much.
And you know what? I
Mhm.
know I had a blessing with God with both of my parents. Uh-huh. And they, I don't know. Yeah, no, my father had the cancer thing that killed him with the Alzheimer's, number one. And my mother, she had cancer too that died. But every day before they died, the day before they died, she let me know she can't eat no more food. That was my mother. And then my father cried, and the pastor prayed for him. Said, take him, God, where you gotta go. And I witnessed him died in my face. Died in my face. And I'm glad that I was that baby girl to be able to take care of both of my parents. I
Thank
thank
you.
God for that.
Thank you for sharing that, Miss Doris. And I'm glad you got to have those wonderful memories with your mom and dad, and that you also were able to be with them during
All
their
the
times of
time.
need
Now,
to provide them that comfort that they needed.
And I'm the
now I
baby
want to.
girl. My mother had 8 kids. I'm the baby girl. They always relied on me to do everything.
Now I want to share. I wanted to let you know that I meant to say it when I was talking. that I cried though with my mom and dad. I mean, my mom, my husband was buried. My dad wasn't. He was cremated. So when the funeral home people brought me his ashes, and he brought them to me, I was like, wow. And I say, this box is heavy. And I put it on the table. When I opened it and I pulled the bag up, I say, oh my goodness, this is you, Daddy? You know, because I'm looking like I never experienced this before. And it was just ashes, you know, and I had to cry. I like, this is my dad, this you, Dad. And, you know, and I put it back in the box and I got it down there now. And that made me cry because I never experienced that part. I always buried people, you know.
Right.
And but when I lift that bag up, that bag was heavy. And I opened it because they say usually you don't supposed to disturb it or open it. Shoot, I opened it and I touched it, you know, and it just felt, you know. But yeah, I wanted to tell you that part. Now that's when I kind of cried. I ain't boo hoo hoo, but you know, it brought a lot of tears to my eyes. 'Cause, you know, but that's where we came from,
Mhm.
you know, from dust. You
Yeah.
know, that's where you go back to if you want to be cremated.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you
But
for
thanks
sharing
for
that.
letting me share that.
You're welcome. Well, thank you all for having me.
Mr. Ronald, did you want to, as our last, thank you all so much for sharing. Did you want to share a question or a comment for Giovanna today, Mr. Ronald?
Well, I'm just grateful that we have someone that can steer us in the right direction because death in the family or just death period creates a whole nother subject, a no, whole nother horizon. But grief in itself is an individual thing, and we all have to go through it at one time or another. So just having someone to talk to or someplace to go to helps because sometimes people say the wrong things and they're trying to help, but they're throwing oil on the fire. So it's
Exactly.
it's it's an individual thing, but you know you have to be careful what you say to someone that's grieving. Sometimes it's just best to hold their hand or just hug them and be silent because they're going through it on their own.
Hmm. Those are all valid points, Mr. Ronald. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. And once again, Giovanna, thank you for coming on and for coordinating this wonderful discussion that, I think everyone should have, but of course, especially seniors and just really enjoying this session.
Thank you for having me. Um, if there are any other topics that you all are interested in around dementia, you can always let Alex know, and he will let me know. If not, I'll just always come back with topics that I think are pretty interesting when we're talking about dementia.
Mhm. Well, let's give Giovanna a wonderful thank you and a thank you to everyone that shared. You guys are so brave for sharing your stories, and we appreciate that so much. So, thank you, Giovanna, and thank you to all our King Agers and Queen Agers for being so brave.
Thank you for having me. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you,
And
Giovanna.
thank
Thank
you
you
for
and happy
sharing.
holidays.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Thank you
Giovanna,
very
Wonderful
much.
presentation.
Thank
and
Wonderful
Very
happy
much.
presentation.
holidays to
Thank
you.
you.
Giovanna.
Thank you. And
My
I did
father,
put
he
I'm
never
very
forgot
happy.
Thank
me.
you.
thank you. I did put
Giovanna.
my contact information and all of the contact information
Okay,
for Jackal and APS in the chat. So feel
okay.
free to reach
Okay.
out.
I got it.
Giovanna, could I say
Thank
something?
you.
Um,
Giovanna,
Yes.
Giovanna, could I say